I gave them everything, every meal, every holiday, every ounce of strength I had left in me after their father passed. Mark, my eldest, had always been the quiet one. A little distant, yes, but responsible. When his father died, he stepped in to take care of me. His wife Jenna nodded along, smiling too wide as they told me to pack my bags and come live with them. "We'll make room," Mark said. "This is your home now too," Jenna added. And I believed them. I moved into their house a week later with just 2 suitcases and my favourite tea kettle. They gave me a small guest room near the laundry with beige walls and no curtains. But I didn't complain. I told myself I was lucky to be near family. I cooked meals for the whole house. I folded their laundry, watched their 2 children when they needed to step out for hours. I kept quiet when Jenna rolled her eyes at my stories, and when Mark stopped coming down for dinner unless she made him. Still, I smiled, because I was their mother, and that's what mothers do. They give, even when nothing comes back. I never asked for anything, not help, not money, not even my own space. All I wanted was love, presence, acknowledgement that I still mattered. But slowly I began to fade into the background, like an old piece of furniture they no longer liked, but hadn't gotten around to throwing away yet. And soon, they'd make sure to do just that. It started with whispers behind doors that were left a little too open. "She's always here," Jenna muttered one evening. "It's just, the house feels crowded." Mark didn't say much, just grunted. Then came the sighs when I walked into a room, the pauses in conversation, the glances exchanged when I offered to help. Even the kids started picking up on it. "Mom says you're staying too long," the youngest blurted once at breakfast, eyes wide and innocent. I smiled like it didn't cut me open, and I kept pouring the orange juice. One night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen when they thought I was asleep. "She's getting older," Jenna said flatly. "We can't keep tiptoeing around her." "We could really use the space," Mark replied. "I mean, the guest room could be an office." "Exactly," she snapped. "It's time." Time for what? I wondered, frozen in the hallway, heart pounding. I stood there in silence until they went to bed, then walked back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. I didn't need them to say it out loud. I had already heard everything I needed. The next day, they didn't say a word about it. But they didn't have to. I saw it in the way Mark avoided eye contact. I felt it in Jenna's tone when she asked if I'd be comfortable in a smaller place with help. They had made a decision, one I wasn't part of. And I knew then, this house had never really been my home. It was just a holding cell until they figured out where to store me next. The day they told me was a Saturday. Mark knocked on my door, pretending to be kind, his voice soft, like he was offering me a gift instead of delivering a betrayal. "Mum, can we talk?" I nodded. He sat beside me, glanced at the floor, like it might help him avoid the weight of what he was about to say. "We've found a great place for you," he said, forcing a smile. "It's a really nice facility. Clean, comfortable, full-time care. You'll have everything you need." I didn't respond. Jenna joined us a moment later, arms crossed, standing. "It's a senior community, Mom," she added. "With people your age, you'll make friends." I looked at my son. "The house feels full, huh?" I asked quietly. He hesitated, then nodded. "We just need more space. For the kids, for our work. You'll be happier there." No one asked what would make me happy. No one asked if I wanted to leave. They had already decided. Without me. My things were already being packed into boxes. Mark said he'd help with the moving truck. Help. like he was doing me a favor by clearing me out of the life I once built. I stood in the living room that evening, looking at the photos still hanging on the walls. Photos I had framed, memories I had held together when their father passed, holidays I cooked, birthdays I hosted. Now I was being removed like a stain on a rug. And all I could think was, they want the house back. They didn't want me. They wanted the space. The nursing home was exactly what I expected. Clean, yes. Quiet, yes. But hollow. The kind of place where time stood still and people were parked like furniture. The halls smelled of bleach and warm milk. The windows barely opened. The common room played the same old shows on a loop, and the walls were painted in colours meant to soothe you into silence. They showed me my room. Small, plain, lifeless. A single bed, a nightstand, and a dresser. My boxes were stacked neatly in a corner, unopened. No photos on the wall, no curtains. No sign that I had lived a life worth remembering. Jenna hugged me briefly before leaving, like it was an errand checked off her list. Mark didn't hug me at all. "Call us if you need anything," he said, glancing at his watch. I looked him in the eyes, searching for the son I once knew. He was gone. They left without even looking back. That first night, I didn't unpack. I sat on the bed, holding a framed photo of me and my late husband, our wedding day, full of smiles and promise. I whispered to him like he could hear me. They took everything, didn't they? But I was wrong. They didn't take everything, because they forgot one very important thing. I still owned the house. The nursing home had its routines, and I followed them like clockwork. Meals at precise hours. Medicine in little cups. TV shows none of us liked. Staff that smiled, but never truly saw you. I watched residents fade by the week. Some from sickness, some from silence. Nobody came to visit the woman in the next room. Nobody asked if I missed my garden, or my books, or the sound of my own kitchen. And my family? I didn't hear from them. Not once. For weeks, I sat by the window and thought about that house. The one I scrubbed clean for decades. The one my husband and I painted together in the summers. The one I filled with casseroles, Christmas music, laughter, and sacrifice. And then I remembered something Mark and Jenna had clearly forgotten. The deed. The house was never theirs. When my husband died, his will clearly stated that the house belonged to me. Fully, legally, unquestionably. I never changed that. I never added anyone to the title. Not Mark. Not Jenna. They had assumed I was too old to matter. They forgot I was still smart enough to own what was mine. So one morning, I asked the young girl at the front desk, a volunteer named Rachel, to print a number for me. My lawyer's. He was still in town, still sharp as ever, and when I told him what happened, he didn't hesitate. "You're the sole owner, Gloria," he said. "You want to sell?" I nodded without blinking. "I want to sell," I said. Immediately. The process moved faster than I expected. My lawyer handled everything quietly, just the way I wanted. No calls to Mark, no warnings, no final chances. Just clean paperwork, a legal listing, and a sign placed gently in the front yard of the house they had taken from me. I didn't even need to be there. The house sold in less than 2 weeks. The market was good. The neighborhood desirable. And the title. It had only ever had one name on it. Mine. Mark found out the hard way. The morning the sale went through, a letter was delivered to the house. A formal notice informing him that the new owners would be taking possession within 30 days, that they were expected to vacate the premises immediately upon closing. The house was no longer his. It had never been his. And now, it belonged to someone who appreciated it more than he ever had. He called me 5 times that afternoon. I didn't answer. The nursing home receptionist said he even showed up once, demanding to see me. But I told her I wasn't available. Because I wasn't. Not anymore. 3 days later, Mark sent a letter. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't heartfelt. Just printed words on a single sheet of paper, folded sloppily and stuffed into a cheap envelope. I don't understand why you're doing this. We gave you a place to stay. We were trying to help. Selling the house without telling us? That's cruel. We have kids, Mom. Where are we supposed to go now? I read it once, then folded it neatly and tucked it into the trash bin beside my bed. Because it wasn't a letter. It was a performance. Not one word of apology, not one line that said, "I'm sorry we made you feel unwanted." He wasn't upset that he lost his mother. He was upset that he lost control. Later that week, Jenna called the front desk and tried to get transferred to my room. She told the staff she was my beloved daughter-in-law. When they asked if I'd accept the call, I simply said, "No, thank you." Because they hadn't just freed up their home from me, they had freed me from them, and I didn't owe them another second of space. I signed the closing documents from my small desk at the nursing home. Rachel, the kind volunteer, brought in a little celebratory cupcake, vanilla with pink frosting. "You look peaceful," she said softly. And I was, because the house that once held my whole world had become a prison. And now, I had finally locked them out. With the house sold and the money in my name, I had options again. Real options. I wasn't stuck in a cold hallway with plastic trays and bland food anymore. I wasn't waiting for family that would never show up. I found a new place. A private senior apartment with a garden courtyard, friendly neighbours, and my own small kitchen. Nothing grand, but everything mine. I paid for it in full. No rent, no permission needed. No one deciding whether I belonged there. The day I moved in, I stood by the window with sunlight pouring through, and for the first time in years, I felt free. No one told me what time to wake up. No one hovered over me, pretending to care. I brewed my own tea, played the music I liked, opened the windows wide and filled the space with lavender and lemon and life. I decorated the walls with my photos again, my wedding day, the kids when they were still small and sweet. One old picture of the house. Before it became just another thing someone tried to take from me, I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just smiled and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me what not to accept anymore." Mark never called again. Jenna didn't write, and I was perfectly fine with that. Because sometimes the most painful blessing is learning who's willing to throw you away, and realizing that it's your turn to walk away first. A month after settling into my new apartment, I asked my lawyer to send one final letter to Mark. It wasn't legal, it wasn't emotional, just honest. Inside, I placed a handwritten note. No threats, no anger, no dramatic goodbye. Just this. You freed up your home from me, so I freed myself from you. Gloria. That was it. No explanations. No stories of how much I had given. Because deep down, I realized, if they didn't see it when I was standing right in front of them, they'd never see it written on paper. After the letter was sent, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not relief. Just peace. The kind that settles quietly in your chest when you know you've stopped begging for love that should have been given freely. Rachel, my sweet volunteer friend, stopped by often now. She helped me set up a tiny herb garden on my windowsill. Basil, mint, rosemary. Simple things that reminded me I still had the power to grow something, even now. Even after everything. Especially after everything. The days moved slower in my new home, but not in a sad way. They moved with purpose, with calm. I woke up when I wanted. I watered my little herb garden while humming old songs only I remembered. I went on walks with other women who had stories like mine. Stories of being set aside, only to rise quietly, stronger than ever. We laughed more than I expected. Sometimes healing sounds like music. Sometimes it sounds like silence you finally enjoy. I never saw Mark or Jenna again. They didn't write, didn't visit, didn't ask where the money went. Maybe they were too embarrassed? Or maybe they were still trying to figure out how they underestimated me. Either way, I didn't care. Because I wasn't living for them anymore. I was living for me. On my birthday, Rachel brought over a homemade lemon pie and said, "You don't seem angry, Gloria. How did you let it all go?" I smiled, because walking away was the best answer I could give them. And staying gone? That's the part they never saw coming. That night, I sat by the window and watched the stars come out, not thinking about what I had lost, but quietly celebrating what I had finally reclaimed: my freedom, my voice, and a life that belonged to me again.